done a nice job. I mean, she really is trying, to build it.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. I'm not going to call the roll, but I will say that the committee is here. Chris Cranbo, Dan Lancer, and the alternate Cheryl Ramos, myself. I appreciate everybody's willingness to come out here on a Thursday night, just to handle some of the business at hand, especially the city budget. As you know, we're required to pass this legislation by the end of the month, so it's important that we get moving on it. I want to start just by acknowledging that there was a lot of hard work, cooperation between the mayor, the auditor, the law director, our friends at Ray and Associates, department heads, all coming together to try to make this budget a reality, something that we can work through and hopefully move along for passage tonight. Their combined efforts, their flexibility in attacking this challenge has provided us a potential here for a balanced budget that we can at least pass here by the deadline that we have. To that end, Council President Kemp has scheduled a special meeting for Monday so we can at least have a first reading, or if council's will is to pass it on a suspension of the rules, we can consider that as well at that time. I just want to briefly summarize some of the work that went into this, because I think everybody needs to know what the department heads and these two individuals have gone through trying to get this pulled together. It's been a lot of work, and I was pleased and proud with their efforts. First, the mayor, department heads came up with about $78,500 worth of spending cuts that we were able to write into the resolution that you see before you. That helps get us partway there, but it doesn't get us all the way there. Secondly, in working with the mayor, the law director, the auditor, our friends from Ray and Associates, we identified that there was some excess money in the cemetery fund, which also comes from the income tax revenues. And it was determined that by being able to swing some of those funds, approximately $280,000, and some other areas that the auditor found with some FEMA payments and things, we were able to increase to $8.1 million, the available balance to be spent in the general fund, which brings us to a positive balance at the end of that time, on paper, which is all we're able to do right now, right, is be on paper. It's my hope that income tax revenues will come in above the 5% that we've projected. That would be wonderful. It would help us to offset some of the things and maybe reinstate some of the cuts that were made. But moving this income tax allotment, the allocations from the cemetery fund, I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, is that the 209? Into the 101 account, still leaves $220,000 of allocation in the cemetery fund to help them cover their budgetary needs. They have a surplus, and we can bring that other $280,000 into the general fund to bring us into a surplus there as well, to bring the budget into balance. Now, to be able to do that, we have to make a change as a body to the allocations of our income tax revenues. That would be ordinance 13/2024 that we'll discuss later. What we would be doing essentially is moving from 7% allocation of income taxes that was going to the cemetery fund to a 3% allocation. The additional 4% then being added to the 60% that was in ordinance 7/2022, we would change that to 64%. If you want to see the the hoop she has to jump through to know where that money is going, because I'm a spreadsheet guy. I tried to build a spreadsheet and figure this out and back out numbers. There are so many different streams of revenues and different places that she by law has to put them that it utterly blew my mind. But I think we've come to a resolution here that we can make work. We understand the choices that we made weren't easy. We didn't take them lightly either. Taking money out of a cemetery fund wasn't something that we did just willy-nilly. We believe, in talking with the mayor, that we can make the budget that's there work. But given the pressing financial times we have with increases in costs, the inflation that's going on, what we're seeing in just the cost of doing business, just like you see in your day-to-day lives, we felt that allocating that money, I explained it to somebody the other day. It's like, hey, I've got excess money in my food budget, but I need a little bit more in my gas budget. Still my money. We just need to move it around. And that's essentially what we did with that portion of this resolution. We're committed to keeping a close eye on this. We've talked about, we plan to meet monthly just to know where we are, how things are going, and to try to keep a good, tight handle on where our money's going, so that we can continue to provide the public services we need to. One of the great things about this, we didn't cut a job. Nobody's gonna be laid off by it. We didn't raise an income tax in any way, shape, or form. We're working within our means, and we're trying to make that as easy to take as possible. But at least doing this allows us to remain agile enough to face the oncoming challenges. So thank you, Beth. Thank you, Joel. Ron, you're here. Thank you for your hard work on this. I certainly appreciate it. With that, I would ask the mayor, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I just want to echo your feelings toward the auditor and all the department heads and Ron and the folks at Ray and Associates for really giving us assistance to having us take a different look at putting together the budget, and I think it's a process that will continue.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that they recommended that we look at ordinance 14 and look at reallocation of the general fund revenues. That was very helpful. So, yeah, the fact that we don't have to lay anyone off, we're not cutting services, and we're still balancing the budget, that's a good thing.
Thank you. Beth, would you like to add anything at all?
Yes, the budget is balanced and that's great. We still need to be really careful with
Yes,
how
we
we're
do.
spending our money.
Absolutely.
Just because it's in a department's budget doesn't mean you can just
Yeah.
spend a
And-
lot of it.
And that's why it's
All-
important
Especially not all at one
that
time.
we're gonna try to keep a handle on that with regular meetings,
Yep.
just so that we can monitor that. I mean, that's just us being fiscally responsible with what we have. And
And then second, you know, with the development of that cemetery land and the revenue coming in from that cemetery struggled for years and years and years. And now that they're getting more of their own revenue, that's helping a lot. And
Absolutely.
we don't have to
Yeah.
subsidize with income tax quite so much.
Yeah, and we can revisit that ordinance at any time that we need to reallocate. We need to do that yearly anyway.
Right.
So in the process again next year, hopefully much earlier in the year than this, we can look at that, and if we need to make a reallocation, we can do so. Ron, you were a part of this, any?
No, I agree with the fact that, this isn't typical, but this is what we had to do to make things work.
Yes.
And I agree that, not only with Beth, but with everybody, I think everybody knows that, Beth knows more than I do, but as far as what she's trying to say is, or what everybody's saying is, it's not just all sitting there, like you see it,
Yeah.
but it all can't just be snagged right now and say, I'm
Exactly.
tagging it. It comes in at different times throughout the year, so we gotta be cognizant of that. And like you say, I think with you doing the
Yep.
monthly meetings, that'll be the key, and getting guidance from Beth and everybody here, I think it can work, and, I think that's the positive
Great.
here. And
Well,
again, here, we're on paper, we have it, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely, we've got a working document.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't go into our yearly budgets as a family January 1st, spending our whole paycheck.
Right.
And that's what we have to look at as a city
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
I would open the floor to questions or comments then from the committee. Dan?
Just kind of echoing what you said, I appreciate all the hard work the auditor and administration and yourself and Ray and Associates has done on this. We got where we needed to go. And I also agree with Beth's comment about the cemetery, that now, when we made that ordinance a couple years ago, was when the cemetery was first starting, we didn't have a lot of income coming into it, and that's why I think we made those adjustments then. And like you said, now the cemetery's in a better place than it was then, so I think that allocating that 4% is not gonna make that big of a difference. It'll make a big difference for the general fund, but it won't hurt the cemetery.
And with what you're saying there is, with the cemetery, and I believe what Beth is saying is, had to make that because without making that, the new cemetery land we have,
Yeah.
we was out of business.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we are, I mean, if you look at it down there, Graver was just down there the other day and put in 12 new foundations. But if we're not purchasing that land and doing what we did, the struggle would be real. That money
Yeah.
that she did have allocated for that, we would need every bit of it and more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just letting everybody know that.
And we're happy to hear that that's how it's working.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well,
So
that was-
now we have a chance to recoup some and get off that
Yeah.
general
If
fund.
council was curious of why we changed it 2 years ago, that's
Yeah,
why we.
yep, I agree with you. I was just echoing home why we can also get away from that is because of that. They're sitting on their own a little bit better than they have.
Right.
For sure.
Can I comment?
Please, Chris.
All right, so obviously, 2.5 months in, still learning a lot of stuff, but when I look at this, I think I'm thinking differently than everybody in the room, because I guess I still see a problem. I think we're kicking the can down the road, personally, when I look at this. The cemetery has a budget of $573,850, which they have a surplus this year, and they're gonna get 220 more. And they got enough to run this year, but I can't imagine, and by any means, we're selling enough plots to come anywhere near what they're gonna need. So, yeah, this solves it 2024, but I worry that we're just putting ourselves in a bind for 2025. We got 15 days to do a budget, but like when I finally got time today, I dug in here and spent time. I love numbers. Also, you know, I think most department heads, I'm guessing, are prideful of having a carryover balance, and maybe the cemetery doesn't need anywhere near the 417 they carried over, which I can understand. But it just seems like this department is the one that got just kicked when it was down, and maybe that's appropriate. I don't know, again, been here, I'm new to this. But we're talking like, I mean, you're not making $300,000 on plots a year. What are we making a year on plots, selling plots? Beth, do you know?
Let me look that up while you talk.
Yeah.
It takes me a minute.
So, yes, does it solve it for 2024? But, you know, I'm a forward thinker, and we're saying we're not laying people off in 2024, we're not doing this, but I still don't see the problem fixed. Like-
Problem is not fixed, Chris, down the road, and we acknowledged that in our discussions. This was about getting us into 2024. There are things that we're working on down the road, trying to get a reinstatement of some of the local government funds that have been taken away and looking at
Okay.
some other revenue streams that are, I see this as a two-step process. We have to have a budget that we can pass, that's a workable budget. And doing this gets us to that point. Down the road, this is not a solution. This is a Band-Aid, not,
So what,
not an operation to fix it.
and Ron or the mayor maybe will answer, is there any major projects coming up for the cemetery that we're gonna need the funds that we're gonna take away from them?
Well, we want to start implementing phase 2 of our master plan, Councilman, which entails demoing the office building at East Avenue, and then building a columbarium area and also an area for in-ground burials. If we have to hold off for a year or so to implement that, we will.
Well, so, cause that's where I look at it and I see they probably have the money to do that now, and after this year, they won't.
Well, yeah, but we also have Shumbrun Meadows Cemetery where burials can take place.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a necessity that we create new burial space at East Avenue.
That's why I was just asking when the
Yeah.
planning time is. Okay.
It was one of those items, Chris, when we talked about it, that we said if we move that a year, we're not hurt by it. So it gave us that flexibility. Yeah, and the questions you're asking are great questions, because they're the questions
Yeah.
we discussed in
They're
the,
excellent
as we work through
questions.
these. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're asking them. It gives us an opportunity to go a little deeper. I gave you a broad brush stroke of the process, but the very question you're asking was
Yeah.
discussed in pretty good detail.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming the department head for cemetery, this has been discussed with him as well. I mean, not that he needs to be, I guess I just look, I don't know how, like I said, I'm still here new, but just when you see a surplus and then it's gone, I mean, I realize this is what we gotta do to move forward. I just, I feel for that department, I guess, in the long run.
As do I.
too. So, yeah,
And we tried to keep it as small as we could to get to where we needed to be.
yeah. And then, just,
But it's the first step, Chris, on a pretty long journey.
yeah. And then just, and again, maybe these are questions I should ask the auditor outside of this. But like, when I look through, this is back and starts on, I don't even know what page I'm on. Sorry, I had these, around, sorry. Bear with
The
me.
account number, it'll be,
I'm just trying to find the right page. So when we get back to basically the pages for each one, like where they have like the 2023 end cash balance and then the projected carryover, which is pretty much the whole back section of this, and probably page 19-ish on. Almost every single one goes negative. Is that normal? For what their carryover is to their from the 2023 end cash balance to the projected carryover? And this probably should have been a question I asked when we looked at it the first time, but, like you look at, for example, special projects had 570,000, 2020, this is page 24. 2023 end cash balance was 570, projected carryover is 128,000. Like here's page 22, this would be the legal research fund. It goes from ending balance 125,000 to 45,000. Is that normal that it just feels like all these cash carryovers are going down quite a bit?
Yes, that is normal. Those are, the ones that you are pointing out are court funds, and we strongly encourage the court to spend their money first, instead of trying to spend it out of anything out of the general fund, because they do have, they are partially in the general fund too.
Okay.
A lot of these, this is what it is on paper when you pass it. The cash balance ends up a lot higher because they decide not to spend the budget, and that kind of thing. Like in the general fund in particular, that cash balance is a positive number, but it's very low. But hopefully, once everybody gets into their year, they're gonna know that they're not gonna be spending whatever and whatever, so.
When we're talking about, is that kind of like where the monies flow, like you got some allocated here and some allocated here, and sometimes it crosses over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
Uh-huh.
okay. That was just a general question, it had nothing to do with budget, so.
And then the cemetery, we also have 2 cemetery capital funds. So any capital, I think there's like 125 total between them. Any more capital can come out of those funds. And I do agree completely with you, you cannot keep passing budgets like this.
No.
You've gotta do something different.
Were you able to find that number of what we had coming in?
Oh, about $100,000 just in cemetery revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, and with that, I guess if I could say something also,
Please.
I see where you're coming from, Chris, and I agree that as soon as we can right this ship, that same amount of money needs to go back and needs to pass legislation. Because I know what you're saying about, and I agree with the mayor, is it needed this year that we do that? No, but is it imperative to keep moving the city forward and having options for our folks? It is imperative, yes. And to tear that building, because we are tearing this building down this year. That was part of it all along. We knew that that money was there and gonna be there. And then I was gonna start working with the folks at, the Career Center and tear it down and start our second phase of the master plan starts with a, columbariums in there and then family plots all around it. So, is it something that I believe this body will have to reinstate that back to go forward with this? Yes, I do. But I agree with these guys a million percent too, and so that it's not a need right now. Do I think it's gonna have to be? Absolutely, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yep, we gotta build back to it.
Yes, exactly.
Yep, we gotta build back to it.
Exactly. And it was not, just so everybody knows, it was not planned for this year. What we was gonna do is tear the building down, which we have the funds still sitting there. We're just gonna take the building down, and it was, bar anything happening here today with that carryover that we had, that was not gonna start this year anyways, just so you know, Chris. It's going to, and I agree, it needs to be put back up there, but it was not gonna be this year. You know, because Sunburn Meadows has been a blessing to the cemetery department for sure. Because, when we decided to purchase that property, they was maybe doing 1 or 2 lot sales a year maybe. You know, so we was struggling. But now with, you know, the funds that are there, and then, or Sunburn Meadows, and it's been a blessing, so, I think we're on our way. And again, yes, will it have to be done, and we reinstate it, I hope it does someday, yes.
All right, thanks.
Anything else, Chris?
I might have something pop in, but I'm good now.
You're good now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm good that you're good. Anybody else? Dan, you had a
I was
comment?
just gonna kind of piggyback on that, you know, where our minds were when we changed it to add that 4%. Was, you know, like now we're generating $100,000 a year, and that's just the beginning of it. I mean, it's gonna grow even more, because I mean, at the time before we had that cemetery, we had one?
It was abysmal.
You couldn't get 2 next to each other.
Yeah.
We weren't selling any. I mean, it was all going to Dover and other locations and stuff. And now that we have that cemetery, you know, like, but we had to change it to give that extra money to them to get the project started at phase 1 and to get that complete and stuff. And now we're we're bearing the fruits from it a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll continue.
And we'll continue. And I agree with you know, with the future projects and stuff, that we definitely want to build that back and
And
put it back.
this is why we've got to keep a tight finger on things and meet regularly to make sure we're progressing as we need to.
Mhm.
That is the key, absolutely.
Yep. Yep. Mitch? Cheryl?
Just a couple things. For more details, I'll ask the people in those departments, but, I also want to thank everybody for their hard work, and I recognize this is for this year, and we need to work on long-term solutions. And I think having the monthly meetings, with the finance chair and that, will go a long way towards that, and keeping the council informed, and keeping our eyes on the spending, and also eliminating any, I call it fluff, but the other word for it is any vanity projects that aren't necessities, and make sure that we eliminate that. And that we continue to look for long-term solutions, and even include that in the monthly meetings.
Sure.
And get on that right away, so we can be proactive in addressing this issue. I, for one, and I told Mr. Ripa this earlier today, I'm not for tax increases at all, or eliminating any credit that out-of-town workers get and making them pay more taxes. I don't want to punish out-of-town workers, because frankly, there are not a lot of jobs here. Some people have to work out of town. So I think we're on the right path, and when we have to keep an eye on it, like any family does, especially
Absolutely.
with the inflation that we have and the rising costs. Most of us they keep saying about people on fixed income. Well, I have a job. I'm on a fixed income too. I think we all are. That we have to keep a close eye on our own budgets. So I'm encouraged,
Great.
treating the city budget just like the rest of us. because eventually you're gonna run out of other people's money. So we have to be careful with that and be good stewards of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other discussion? Any of the other department heads who would like to chime in? Do you guys feel comfortable making a motion for us to present this to the council to be passed? So that we can enact the budget? Yes, you guys.
Just one real quick question. We're losing a couple in the police department, a couple retires. Does this budget allow for replacing those or not at this time?
It allows for replacement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to answer that for you.
When, depends on,
Yeah, makes
you know,
sense.
the
A lot
time.
of factors.
Yeah,
A lot of
but
factors.
it does allow.
Yeah. And you know, those kind of things, people are changing jobs, that can
Oh,
happen.
right, yeah.
At about any department that we'll have to look at and figure out. Fortunately, that's the mayor's job to handle, not mine, so I'm happy about that part. But if we have no other discussions, questions, comments, I would entertain a motion if you are happy with this budget and willing to send it to the full council, I would entertain a motion to do so.
I move that we add proposed ordinance 13, 2024 to Monday's special meeting agenda and have a first reading.
I'll second it.
Okay, I will call the roll. Dan?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
I will also vote yes, so we will present that Monday, and we'll see if we have enough people to consider suspending the rules. That gives us a chance to get it passed immediately. If not, we'll hold it for second reading at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you. Along with that, I would entertain a motion on the reallocation ordinance, which I believe is 14, 2024?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we add ordinance number 14, 2024 to Monday's agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I'll call the roll. Mr. Kreinbel?
Yes.
Mr. Lancer?
Yes.
And myself a yes as well, so we will forward that as well to put on the agenda for Monday's special meeting. The last thing I wanted to discuss actually takes us back to ordinance 11, 2024. The law director sent out a notice today about that. This is the ordinance to establish a fund called the Land Reutilization Fund for the purpose of processing funds for land reutilization pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, declaring an emergency. As the law director explained this to me, this is putting together, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, this is putting together a line item where we can put money for properties that were repossessed but did not sell at auction, that we can sell at fair market value. We have to have a place
Correct.
to put that money specifically. So all we're really doing is creating a line item for those revenues from that property. I think he sent out an email that probably all of you got a chance to read. He had a prior engagement tonight and asked me if it was okay if he didn't come. I said I thought we all understood enough, so.
Yeah, I've got it.
So have we-
Go ahead, I can talk on it if you
Oh,
want
yeah.
to, Chris. No, go ahead, if you had a question
I was
first.
just
I've
gonna
got
say, have
that.
we never had one?
No, and truly what we have here, we have a parcel right now that, owed on, back taxes, water and sewer bills, so we foreclosed on it.
This is a copy paste of what he said.
We, and don't quote me on the number, ask Josh to be 100% sure. I think we have, we could go over file 2,500, once we get that back, but, so we get all the money back. Now we have the fair market value, and I wanna say it's 13.5 for this piece of property. But now we have to, just like Beth needs that number, you have to create that file to bring that 13.5 in-house,
Some place to put it.
someplace to put it. That's all this is doing. County, they've got land banks. City-wise, we're not allowed to have a land bank unless we're a charter city. So this is why, Ohio Revised Code has us do it in this fashion here that we're doing it in. And then that money goes there, and then if we see another property, we use that same money. We're not giving off general fund or anything like that. We're just kind of recirculating it back through. Again, this will be a profit on this piece once we get this sold. It's not no out-of-pocket money or anything like that, but that's gotta be refed and then we're gonna keep going after, as we can. This isn't like,
So
we're
it
gonna
went
have
to
10 of
tax-
them a
It went to
year.
tax sale and no one bought it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, we are the one that had the biggest lien holder on it, so then we acquire it, but, and again.
I think the city gets it regardless if no one buys it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and but we started the, we're the one that started
glad
the
you did it,
process.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So then we get it, and, without saying too much, the parcel that this is connected to, two other parcels in an area that everybody will be amazed once it's done. And I'm not afraid to say we're a public meeting. Owen Miller is probably gonna buy it all. He already has a couple parcels, and everybody knows his work that he's seen throughout town. So it's gonna make a certain area of town
Be fantastic.
10 times better
Yes.
than what it
Yes.
looks right now. He's gonna loop it all in and then, make it work better. But it's not something that we're gonna have probably 3 a year at the most.
Right.
I don't even know if we'll see that, but we just gotta have that conduit to get it back in, that's all.
Yeah, we're required by the higher revised
Right.
code.
In
It's
order
not
to
like
be
we're
able
doing
to
it,
Sell
yeah.
it at fair market
But
value.
Yeah.
it's very rare that someone doesn't buy it at the auction.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I'm glad you guys are doing that because I did a property that my family owns. We foreclosed on a tax sale and
Right.
bought it. And that's the $2,500 and you can keep reusing it
Yep,
as a
yep,
city.
that's what we're gonna try to do.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep, you're welcome.
Other questions, comments?
I had a question.
Yes.
To follow up on your explanation, Ron, of this, is just that, okay, so the city gets back the money spent for the water, sewer, et cetera, out of we get our money back, right?
Yeah, we're made whole.
And then out of the sale, right?
Right.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to place that additionally onto the agenda for Monday for our first reading. The law director said that he'd like to have this passed, but he was okay with 3 readings with it, so.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
I wanna overturn him a little bit.
You'd prefer it sooner?
Yeah, because we've been having
fine.
it sit out
Yeah.
there for months now.
Well, I appreciate that input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we could. It's sitting there, and Mr. Miller has contacted me twice, myself,
Wow.
and Josh
Right.
once.
And that'll be determined by our attendance and our
Right.
ability to
I'm just.
to
if-
suspend the rules
if
on
you-
Monday.
If you would consider it, that would be.
We would consider that.
I would be thankful.
So,
I'll make a motion that we add ordinance number 11/2024 to Monday's agenda and attempt to pass it on.
no, this
first
is
reading.
11. This is 11.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Lanzer seconds. I would call the roll. Mr. Kreinbel?
Yes.
Mr. Lanzer?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes, so we will pass that forward as well to put on the agenda for our special meeting next Monday at 6:30?
6:30.
6:30. Okay.
Oh,
Is
I'm
there
glad
any
you-
other business?
I'm
to
glad you
co-
said that. I downset
Is there any other business to come before
Well,
council?
it's gonna be here Monday.
What time is it Monday?
You're gone,
6:30.
right?
Yes, I'm gone.
So, I know
Available.
Tom's gonna be back, so we'll have 6.
I will be here.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll be here.
Amen.
You really do have to worry about that.
Mike's gonna be.
Mike said.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there any other business,
We're not
any other new
shoveling it.
business to come before this committee? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned at 7:03. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everybody's hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.